but we kind of preach that you can really do anything for a season and a reason. And it was a short season of our lives, and we had a really important reason, which was get out of debt. But that was definitely a challenge for sure, was putting the ego aside.
Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Shaun Morgan, a full-time teacher. And that's right, I teach every day just like you, and personal financial coach. And I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights, or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, or maybe you're in a little bit of debt and you need to get out of that to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice, and neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional. I'm super excited to have our guests on. We got Haley and Justin from the Price of Avocado Toast on. And just a little bit about them. After blowing through about $600,000 in the lawsuit payout and then racking up over $220,000 worth of debt in 3.5 years, they got serious about changing the narrative they had created for their lives. Within 18 months, they had paid off $130,000 of debt and restarted their wealth journey. During this period, they began their podcast, Price of Avocado Toast. Their focus has been on having open and honest money conversations with others to help remove the stigmas and shame around finances. The hope is that these conversations enlighten the younger versions of themselves and save them from the pitfalls Haley and Justin fell into, back then. In 2021, Haley began the financial coaching branch of Price of Avocado Toast. She brought Justin onto the team in 2023, and together they have helped clients tackle over $1 million of debt. Now their family is working towards generational wealth building and a future of outrageous generosity. I love that. Such a beautiful word choice. Fantastic. Outrageous generosity. Okay. Welcome, Haley and Justin, to the show.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thanks. We're excited to be here.
I can't wait to talk to you. Well, we connected at FinCon, which is a conference for financial education. It was just great meeting with them. And the way we connected is someone connected us because of education. I was talking about education and money, and you guys were both educators, right?
Yep.
Yeah, both teachers.
So can you tell me just a bit about your education journey so that way, our listeners can know a bit about that?
Yeah, totally. Well, I think it was, I don't know, right after we met in about 2016, maybe late 2016, early 2017, where Haley decided that she wanted to pursue teaching as a career. And so she went into a kind of a dual program to get her credential and master's in teaching. And while she was in the program, I was kind of pursuing a different career in law enforcement and realized that wasn't for me. And I came home one day and was like, I don't know what I want to do. And she said, well, I think you'd be a really good teacher as well. I'm a high school football coach, and Haley had been a high school swim coach. We really enjoyed being around students and helping people learn. And she kind of pushed me into teaching as well. So she started teaching, I guess you started teaching in 2018.
2018, yeah.
Yeah, and then I started teaching in 2019. Haley left after 2.5, about 3 years of teaching, and I left after 4. So we were, teachers for just a short period of time in life. I still like to think that we are teachers in some capacity. We just teach, different learners. We teach adult learners, and the content is different. It's, personal finances rather than ancient civilizations and language arts. But yeah, that's kind of what's our own educational background and our own teaching journey that's gotten us to today.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Even a short amount of time in education can be really eye-opening, and it really just helps you understand, the teacher mindset, the teacher perspective on life. And I think that's really valuable since we're going to be talking about debt today. And specifically, you guys were teachers and you had a lot of debt, right? There's $220,000 of debt, you said. How did that happen?
Yeah, very quickly. So, as you mentioned when you were reading our bio, Justin received a $600,000 lawsuit payout after his grandma died of mesothelioma. And this is really important in mentioning how we got into debt, because that money, we were not ready to receive it. And when we received it, we didn't have any financial foundation. very little financial education that we were going off of. So we were just like 23, 24 years old, doing the best we could at that time, which was, spending it on fun stuff. And because of the financial irresponsibility that we had at that time, we ended up spending money at such a high level so quickly that when the money was gone, we started spending on debt. What would have been out of the $600,000 initially, then we pivoted to credit cards, thinking, oh, we can manage this. And it quickly spiraled to not being able to manage it at all. I do want to mention that 130,000 or so of that was student loan debt, but we acquired $130,000 of student loan debt when we had money to pay for school, but we decided not to pay for school. We decided to just keep our money and take out student loans. But then what happened is we spent the money and then we had student loans. So it just was a lot of not really knowing what we were doing and being very unprepared to receive that type of money.
Yeah. And on top of that, we had about $27,000 in credit card debt. We had a timeshare when we were financially irresponsible, thinking that that was a great vacation choice. We had every card for department store that you could think of. We had Macy's, Kohl's, Dick's Sporting Goods, Apple. We had absolutely everything that you theoretically could get as far as debt. We had a vehicle debt. We were lucky enough to avoid personal loans, or like debt consolidation loans, but we had those in the past. So we had just about everything you could think of.
Yeah, I loved how you said, when I said, how'd you get there? You said quickly. It really doesn't take that long. I mean, like in my crazy imagination, I look at, this balance, like, like how much my debt limit is. Sometimes I'm like, how much could I spend of that? Like, how quickly could you spend that? And
Yeah.
you can really, it doesn't take long to imagine how easily you could spend your entire credit card limit. So it's really, it's easy to do if you don't have any discipline going on and you're not aware that you need the discipline.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you were able to pay this off as teachers, is that correct?
Yeah, we did a lot of damage on our debt payoff while we were both still teaching.
Yeah.
So how are you able to do that?
We went we went very extreme in our approach. And I think it's important to note that we had assets that we were able, some people would loosely call them assets, but we had paid off vehicles. We had things that we could liquidate immediately to turn into cash to then throw towards debt. And this is a very aggressive approach that I don't recommend a lot of people take, because what happens is if you just start liquidating things to pay off your debt, but you don't work on like what got you there to begin with, you're just going to spiral and the cycle just continues and continues. Thankfully for us, that didn't happen. We sold paid off vehicles. We actually took money out of Justin's Roth IRA. Again, another thing I don't recommend, but we liquidated these assets, paid off debt immediately, and that got the ball rolling very quickly. That got the momentum going. That got us excited. And we told ourselves, like, we didn't just sell our really nice car for nothing. Like, we're done. We're gonna go for this. And I'm really thankful that we didn't end up in a spiral, because I see that happening so frequently with a lot of people. But yeah, and then why don't you talk about kind of like how we paid off with the rest of like just budgeting? I mean,
Yeah.
there were a lot of factors there.
Yeah. Besides the idea of, kind of liquidating assets or doing those things to make larger chunks and dents in our debt, we also got really extreme with budgeting. So we slashed our budget to just about as low as possible. We're in a really, really expensive market in Northern California, wine country. So it's really pricey here. We had a home mortgage though at the time that was relatively manageable compared to like rents locally and other mortgages. And we were right in the thick of, unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic. So we were not really able to go out and spend money because things were locked down. So we were kind of forced to stay home, not dine out. We got really good at meal planning. We cut TV and just went to a really, really cheap service. We got rid of absolutely everything that we didn't need to spend on. And it kind of helped as well because, again, while the pandemic was so unfortunate, it really was a tuning fork for us and our values as a family and who we wanted to be as parents and partners and just humans in the world. And it really allowed us to just stay home and be present with one another and our newborn daughter at the time. And so that's kind of the other logistical side of what we did, right? We budgeted like crazy and got it as low as possible so that we could throw absolutely everything at it. And I mean, that included things like stimulus checks. That included things like I got a second job working at a restaurant doing just takeout orders when we could. And then when we opened back up for light dining, we had, some tips to throw at it. Like we really did just about everything we could to hammer away at it.
Yeah, I like how you took a multi-pronged approach, right? There's the reduce your spending approach. There's the increase your income approach, and then getting rid of things that aren't necessary. That's another
Yeah.
thing that's really really important, like selling that luxury car, or even you have things around your house you don't need. Sell it on Facebook Marketplace, right? Things like that. There's lots of things you can do to throw more at your debt. And I feel like I probably zoomed past this, so I want to go back to this. How did you realize that you were having a problem? Like what was your light bulb moment? How come you didn't keep spiraling? There was obviously a click, a change. So how did you know it was time to make a change?
That's a great question. And it's actually kind of like a famous origin story for us. We call it our pumpkin muffin story. So basically, Haley was about 7 or 8 months pregnant, and she had beat me home from her teaching job. Were you still teaching at the time? I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
weren't 8 months pregnant then. It was maybe like early in the 7th month. And she beat me home early teaching, and she went to Costco before I got home from my job, and she bought pumpkin muffins. And I got home, and she had told me, hey, there's some really good muffins in the kitchen. And rather than be excited that my pregnant wife, like, curbed a craving and got some really good muffins, I was upset that she spent $7 on these muffins that I didn't think we had money for. And we kind of got into an argument about it. And we do not argue. We've been really firm from the beginning of our relationship that we're going to communicate as effectively as possible with one another and believe that we're both a team. And so that has helped us, not argue. And this was like the first time we really kind of like felt a jolt in our relationship of like, wait a minute, this is not an adversarial thing. We're a team here, and the team needs to get to the root of what this problem is. And so we really started to kind of dig deeper on it then and figure out like, okay, it's not that I'm bummed about these muffins. It's the shame and the guilt of feeling like I'm not I'm not helping my pregnant wife be able to say yes to these things. And that's a bigger issue for us.
And we spent the $600,000 so fast. And I mean, like so fast that we didn't really realize how much debt we were acquiring until that moment when we were like, wait a minute, we're both teaching, we both have salaries, we should be able to just go to the grocery store and buy what we want to an extent, right? But no, we were putting our essentials, groceries and bills, utility bills on credit cards because we'd already blew all of our money and everything else was going towards like basic minimum debt payments. So that was the moment of like, we're both bringing in the most money we've ever made and we're broke. This is not okay. This isn't what I thought it was going to be. Something has to change.
I love the light bulb moment for people because it's always like the most ridiculous thing, it seems like.
Yeah.
It's just always like, what?
Yeah, totally.
Our light bulb moment was with a window salesman. So I mean, like it's just the weirdest things can bring people towards trying to get better with their money, and I think that
Mhm.
that's huge. So thank you for sharing that. So you have a light bulb moment, you start tackling your debts, and you're doing it on teacher salaries. I just want people to realize this, that they're not making hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay off hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. They're making teacher salaries. I mean, you're in California, so it's not like low teacher salaries, but it's still a teacher salary, right? And cost of living
Right.
adjustment, it's a teacher salary. We all know what that is, right? So that is a huge, huge accomplishment. Uh, when you were on this debt payoff journey, were there any specific challenges that you ran into specifically with, you obviously stopped teaching partway through the journey, Haley, and you're working on a teacher salary, trying to get some extra with, working this side job. Was there any specific challenges that you ran into as you were going through this debt payoff journey, or was it just smooth sailing?
It was a very fast momentum, smooth sailing for the most part, but I do have to share that it was initially really hard for me to cut the things out of our budget that I didn't want to cut. We were living a life we couldn't afford. It was great. I didn't want to cut getting my nails done or cut doing the fun stuff. So initially that really was a bit of FOMO, like, oh, I'm going to miss out on all these cool things we've been doing. That was hard initially to get over that hump, but then once we were over it, it was pretty smooth. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I do think that, just kind of the idea behind it of like teacher salaries, it was tight. I was a first year teacher at the time, and my paycheck was $2,400 a month, carrying the family insurance. And so I only got paid once a month, and it was $2,400. Haley worked in a little bit better of a district, but I think her paycheck was about
35 maybe?
3,500. Yeah. So when all was said and done,
Monthly.
our budget was down to about 54 or $5,500 a month. So we had about 500 extra dollars we could theoretically throw at debt. And while that's great for the snowball method, and you can really start to kind of tackle things, I think one of the challenges was realizing, well, dang, like we worked this career that like we're really proud of, but when you're a young teacher, it doesn't quite always add up. And so sometimes you do need to pick up a second job. You need to kind of hustle and get innovative. And there was, for me, a little bit of pride associated with that I kind of needed to tuck aside and say, hey, there's no shame in saying I have goals and there's things that I want to reach for my family, and my wife and I are, thinking that there's some things we want to do. And the only way to reach those goals is to get uncomfortable and do some other things. But it was hard at the start to kind of put my pride aside, because you want to say, I'm a teacher, dang it. Like, I want to be able to come home and not stress about getting another job or racing straight from school to the restaurant to go serve tables. But we kind of preach that you can really do anything for a season and a reason. And it was a short season of our lives, and we had a really important reason, which was get out of debt. But that was definitely a challenge for sure, was putting the ego aside.
Have you gotten value out of the Teacher Money Show? If you have, tell a teacher friend about it. I really appreciate it. You can do anything for a season and a reason. That is so profound. Man, I want to dwell on that for a second. So anything for a season and a reason. So it's like short period of time, and then there has to be something firing you. What fired you? I mean, like getting out of debt's great, but like it's a number on a screen. What fired
Yeah.
you to go do this thing you didn't want to do every day? Like when you were like, man, I don't want to go wait another table. What really just gave you that reason to get out there?
That's a great point. Like paying off debt is great. And yes, it's nice seeing that number go down, but truly that is just a number. And as long as you have kind of a guiding why behind there's going to be something deeper, or there should be something deeper, I should say. Otherwise, it's just a number, and you'll get to the end when you get to the end, and who cares, right? For me, the big why was the fact that both Haley and I grew up in single parent households, traditionally, and we were not taught about finances, and realizing that if we had had a strong financial education at a younger age, we would not have made kind of the drastic choices that we made with that original lump sum of money, and we would be sitting really pretty. We'd be traveling like wild. Our kids' college would be paid for. We'd live in a beautiful home, and we'd be really able to pursue some things that we wanted to pursue. And I never wanted to look back and think that my children didn't have those opportunities because of choices I made. If it's a choice that, they make, well, then that's up to them. But my parents didn't know any better, and that wasn't fair to them. But now that I know better, I want to do better. And so that was really what lit me up, was just being better, for lack of a better word, for our family.
For me, it was actually a little bit different. Yes, similar, but I really wanted to build a family and have kids pretty quickly. And when I realized the cost of childcare and did the math and knew that there was no actual way that we could pay for one kid in childcare for $1,200 a month, let alone multiple, um, I was like, this has to change immediately, because I didn't want to have to pause the process of us having children because we couldn't pay for it. I didn't desire to have a 7-year gap between my kids because we couldn't put them in childcare at the same time. And it makes me really sad to even say this because this is the reality of so many people. They get to a point where they're like, what? I don't know how I'm going to afford this because it costs so much money. And our mortgage at the time was 2,200 or so. Childcare on top of that, boom, that's all of our paychecks. Like we barely have money for anything else. And that was a huge like, okay, if we can do this for a little bit of a season, if we could do this for 2 years, then it'll be a little easier. Like if we could just put our heads down, do it, hustle, whatever, then it won't be this hard forever. So I just had that vision in my head like it was never permanent for us. We knew that it was always temporary from day one.
Yeah, and family is such a strong motivator. I thank you for sharing that. But that doesn't have to be, your motivation if that's you don't have, kids or something like that. You just need to have something that really drives you to get out of debt. And I think that's huge that you guys had that in your brain as what you're going for. And childcare is absolutely ridiculous. Let's
Yeah.
just be honest with that. I mean, like naturally, I want the people that are taking care of my child to get paid because they deserve it. But it's just, I don't know how anybody affords to send their child to childcare. It's just
Yeah.
you make just as much money as you pay on sending them there. It's crazy. So as you're paying off debt, you mentioned the debt snowball method. Is that what you guys were using, or did you have other strategies you were using to help really, get this train moving to really pay off this huge lump sum of debt?
We used the debt snowball and got very very gamified and excited about it. We had like all these posters and stuff that really helped us see like where we were going. But debt snowball will always have a place in my heart because it worked very well for us. We needed at that point in time to see a small win. And if someone listening doesn't know what the debt snowball is, the concept is where you essentially pay off the smallest debt first, pay minimums on absolutely everything, and then anything else that you have extra left over would then funnel into that smallest debt that you're paying off. And then once that one's paid off, the amount would then snowball to the next largest one. And then the final one is the largest debt. So we were coming from a place of like, we've never paid off debt before, we've never done this. So doing something quickly made us excited. We needed some momentum and we needed to feel like, okay, this is actually working. All this hard work that we're doing is actually going somewhere. We're seeing it go down. So the debt snowball was definitely the approach that we used. Yeah, I enjoyed it. We in the beginning it was kind of a little bit of like, okay, let's just sell this car and throw it all at the credit card. So there wasn't much strategy in the beginning, but once we got going, it was definitely the snowball.
Yeah, I mean, if it works, it works, right?
Yeah,
There's all these people that argue about what the best way to do it, and the difference is usually a handful of dollars. It's like, come
yeah,
on, whatever works for you works for you. And so I love the debt snowball because it's that image of that snowball rolling down the hill, and by the very end, it's a gigantic snowball that can just plow through anything. So you're putting that small amount of money towards that first debt, and then the money you save from having that debt paid off starts going to the next and the next and the next until it's all gone. It's a powerful image and it's a powerful way to pay off debt, obviously. Are you guys debt free today? Or are you still, plowing through the last little bit of that?
Yep, we're still plowing through the last little bit. So we do still have student loans. We have about 100,000 left in student loans, all things considered, with some grants that got turned into loans and whatnot when we stepped away from teaching. But yep, still plowing through student loans. Our wealth journey's kind of changed directions and we've gone different ways and thought, well, do we want to pay off student loans while we're, waiting to see what the government chooses to do? Do we think that I'll ever go back to teaching and then qualify for public service loan forgiveness? Our lives are just kind of really up in the air with the business that we're building. And so we're kind of, I don't want to say taking a back seat as far as it goes with debt payoff, but really looking, I would say, more like 30,000-foot view rather than super singular like we were on the debt-free journey at the start of things.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just want to make sure everyone's aware of this. Like, you're $100,000 in student loan debt. Great. Like, it's who isn't these days, right?
Yeah.
So many
Literally.
people have student loan debt. It's not like something to be ashamed of. And I love how you took the time to be like, is this what I still want to be doing? Because being
Yeah.
$100,000 in student loan debt is not, the end of the world. It's probably a low interest rate debt, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
So then you have to ask yourself, what are your priorities? And how have your priorities shifted? I'm assuming you're not putting every, cent you can towards that debt. You're probably putting them towards other, opportunities. What kind of opportunities are you now looking at? And what are you seeing on the horizon?
Well, we've definitely changed with our ideas of kind of values and spending. So we now have 3 kids, and kids are, more expensive as they age. We're lucky they're 4 and under, so we don't have a ton of expenses for them. But obviously there are some expenses that come along with having kids. And then beyond that, just kind of wealth building. We've chosen to go into the route of investing both into brokerages for our kids and ourselves, as well as real estate investing on a very small scale. Right now, we just have a singular property in Ohio that we've invested in and we've shared about on our podcast and stuff. So our goals for like long-term wealth have really changed. And again, like you said, 2 years from now, that may change again. And we may say, hey, we're going to sell this rental unit and pay off student loans, or we're going to get another side job and hammer out debt. Like, we don't really know. And that's kind of the fascinating thing about personal finance that we've found, I think, on our journey. We're only less than 4 years, really, I would say, into this, all things considered. And so every year has been something new for our family. It's been a new kind of part of the journey. Um, so yeah, who knows what that looks like? But to answer your question more succinctly, just looking into actual investments and real estate investing has been what's kind of changed rather than debt payoff.
Yeah, I love it. Personal finance is personal. It's what they always say. And you've made that personal decision to do something different. And I think that that is something that everyone needs to hear, that you don't have to follow like strict steps. You don't have to pay off this debt before that debt, or do this debt before you do. There might be some small child steps that people tell you you're supposed to take, but you can make whatever decision you want to make. It's up to you. And
What's funny is we now still get the itch every now and then. Like we do talk every now and
No,
then,
it's
like,
not. It's not even every now and then. It's quite frequently.
yeah, we're like, what would it be like if we just like, let's do like an entire 6-month content series of just like going all in again on this debt. Like, let's side hustle like crazy. Let's see what it would look like, because we do still want to scratch the itch every now and then.
I want to share something that I think is so funny. I just shared this with a client recently. We have acquired debt intentionally 2 times since we paid off our debt. The first time was when we bought a van. We financed a van. Whew, getting the car payment, that gave us anxiety. Number two was when I bought a laptop that we're zooming on right now. It was like a $2,000 laptop. I bought it interest free and put it on a credit card that was interest free for like 2 years. We couldn't handle it. We couldn't handle it at all. We had both of them paid off like very quickly afterwards because it made us like just just having the car payment or just having the Best Buy credit card. I couldn't manage. I was so anxious just having something that was 0% interest. So it's so funny because we went so hard on the never again moment that like we even tried it and it's a firm never again.
Yeah.
Like we tried it and paid it off very quickly.
I love it. Never again. Never
Never.
again. That's great. So now that you are, out of your major debts, right? You got some student loan debt, which is once again totally normal. You said you have a business where you are helping people get out of debt, right? Can you tell us a little bit about what you do in that regard?
Yeah, we have a financial coaching business that I started about 2.5 years ago. And we primarily help people who are in quite a bit of debt. We help them with the basics of finance. A lot of people were not taught this. We were not taught this. If you were not explicitly taught how to manage money, you're not alone. But there are ways to learn in adulthood. So that's what we help people with. Like the budgeting 101, yes. The debt payoff, yes. But also, like, how do you manage your money long term? How do you heal your relationship with money? How do you get to a point where you can spend money and feel good about it and say, like, actually, that was planned for, that was intentional, it was in the budget, it was value based. So yeah, that's a little bit about what we do. And it's just the most rewarding thing. Like teaching in the classroom was amazing. that was rewarding. But this is pretty cool because we get to combine the love of teaching with the passion we've developed with finance in one realm. It's just pretty fun.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey for sure.
And your students aren't poking their neighbor or,
Yeah,
throwing
yeah,
gum.
exactly.
Yeah. They don't even talk to each other. They don't even know that each other exists.
Not passing notes. Okay. Thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful conversation. I have 2 more questions for you guys. They're the questions I ask all of my guests. The first one is, what is your number 1 tip for teachers? And let's say teachers who are in debt to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life.
I've got one if I could go
Yeah.
first. The first thing that I would say is remember that you have value in the world, whether that is staying in the classroom, whether that is doing something else, whether that is advocating for yourself on your campus or within your district. Teachers historically have some of the biggest hearts, and we want to solve all of the problems for everyone, but not always ourselves. And if we can keep ourselves in mind and remember that we have value to offer the world and the space, whether again that's in the classroom or not, then I think that we will live much richer lives, both in our wallet and just our everyday lives.
Amen. So I've said before you go, Haley, it's one of my
Well,
number
that
1
was
things I need to tell teachers. Just every time I see a teacher, every time I can, it's just you have value of your own, right? And you need to take care of yourself too, right?
yeah.
And the teachers just want to give, but you can't give if you have left nothing for yourself, right? So you need
Yes.
to focus on your own, your value, and making sure that your life is in order, so that way you can continue to give, right? So
Yeah.
if you have something like that base, kind of like having a pot of money invested, it keeps giving off those dividends. Teachers can give off dividends if we keep that core taken care of. So thank you for sharing that. All right, Haley, I want to hear your tip.
I was just thinking, this sounds so simple, and I know everyone says this, but don't take work home if you can avoid it. When I stopped doing that, I know this was just like my second year teaching, but I was like, I'm absolutely not doing that ever again. Justin also stopped after his 3rd year, and it just was transformative for our whole entire lives. Um, so yeah, I think it actually helped us enjoy teaching more.
Totally.
It helped us feel excited, even though we may have felt behind. Because I think that's why a lot of people do it. They take stuff home so they can not feel rushed and behind while they're at school. But I think it did the opposite. It helped us prioritize prioritize spending our time different when we were in the classroom, when we were prepping, and overall it just was really a game changer.
Yeah.
Another amen.
Yes.
Teachers, everyone that hears it, when the contract hours are over, go home
Yes.
and be home. Don't take your work with you. I
Yes.
love it. I specifically said for teachers in debt, and I love how you guys didn't even focus on the debt, right? It's just take care of yourself.
Yep.
Right? If you take care of yourself, you can take care of your debt. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Totally.
All right, last question for you guys. Where can teachers get in contact with you?
We are on social media at Price of Avocado Toast, pretty much across the board. We are on Twitter / is it still called Twitter?
X.
X. We're on X.
Everyone calls it Twitter still. It's
Yeah.
okay.
We are over there at Price Avocado, but everywhere else on social media, you can find us just at Price of Avocado Toast. Our podcast, Price of Avocado Toast, can be found wherever you're listening to this podcast today. And then also our website, priceofavocadotoast.com, is where you can find us. On our website, it basically links everything that we do all together in one spot. But yeah, that's where we're at.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today. It's been a real pleasure having you.
Thanks,
for
Shaun.
having us.
Appreciate you.
If you'd like to come on the podcast for coaching, to share an expert opinion, or just to talk about a topic you think is relevant, I'd love to talk to you. Just fill out the form at teachermoneyshow.com/guest. I look forward to talking with you.